Hey guys, welcome to another episode of MTG Brewery. It's been a while since we did a deck tech. We were supposed to get this up a while ago, but we're going to try to put out a bunch of videos this week. This will be the first of them. It is the deck tech for the Cruel Control deck. It's the almost exact list I played in the battle video, the versus video. I added in a Hero's Downfall and 2 Terminates. There's no Slaughter Pact or Dismember in this version. Just some minor changes there. Some changes to the sideboard. But those were gone over in the original sideboard was in the article. The slightly changed sideboard will be in this video if you guys didn't go read my article on Bro Deals. But here's the current version of Cruel Control that I've been playing to some pretty decent success. Played in 2 money tournaments. Got first and third back-to-back weeks, so that was pretty nice. So we're going to get in the deck. We're going to start off with the only creatures in the deck, 1 Murderous Redcap and 1 Snapcaster Mage. Redcap's weird in a control deck, but with Delver being so popular, this is certainly a very good card. It can kill a flip Delver, Young Pyromancer, or a Swift Spear if they can't prowess it. When it enters, then it can block, come back in and kill something else. So it can kill about 2 to 3 creatures out of the Delver deck if they don't have access to Pillar of Flame in their list, which a lot of them don't once this resolves. And this can't be Spell Pierced or Spell Snared, which is very common in their removal suite. Also Remand. You can't really play around a Mana Leak, but all of their other removal won't really stop a Redcap forever, or at all, at least counterspell wise. And then Bolts and Fork Bolts only kill it once, and then it comes back and does more. So very good. It also, with your Cruel Ultimatums, you can get it back and use it again. It also has much versatility. If there's a bunch of pod in your meta, it can easily kill a creature when it enters, block, and kill something else. It just has a bunch of utility, and it can be pretty aggressive if you back it up with some burn spells. I don't have 2 in this list like I do online, so it can't be Redcap, and just beat down on a control deck, but it can still kind of beat down against control decks. We also have the 1 Snapcaster Mage, pretty common in control decks. I'm only running 1 instead of 2 or 3. I'm really focused on playing big spells. Snapcaster Mage isn't really amazing with big spells. To flashback Cruel Ultimatum or Cryptic Command, Consume, make things like that, it takes a bunch of mana. There's also plenty of cheap spells you can flashback. So instead of playing more Snapcasters, we're just playing more spells. Since a lot of our spells are more expensive, he's not really that great in this list, but being able to buy him back with Cruel Ultimatum and flashback Cruel Ultimatum definitely makes me want to have at least 1 in the deck. There are 3 Cruel Ultimatums. The key card of the deck, we play 4, but it's 7 mana and a sorcery. So getting 2 of these in your opening hand is pretty much a mulligan to 5 already. Don't really want to risk getting 2 in your opening hand too many times. But they can chain together very well, or just resolving 1 and getting a Snapcaster Mage, either by drawing it or playing Mystical Teachings to get it, can do a lot of work with Cruel Ultimatum. And this can pull you out of game or put your opponent very far behind very quickly. So we definitely wanted to have 3 of these, but I feel like that's the perfect number. Don't want any less so we can draw them consistently, don't want any more so we don't draw too many. 4 Serum Visions. We don't have too many sorcery speed things outside of Cruel Ultimatum. This is pretty much it in Redcap. So we're fine playing a 1 mana sorcery that says draw a card, scry 2. It does set up our draw. If we play it on turn 1 or turn 2, we don't get to represent counter spells, but we're normally fine with that. There are quite a few lands that will come into play tapped, and we don't always want to pay life for shock lands. So just digging 3 cards into our deck will be good. It also works very nicely if you're playing Halimar Depths in your deck. I am not, but this is certainly a good card nonetheless. There's 1 Logic Knot, a kind of counterspell. If you play a fetch land on turn 1, this can easily be counterspell for 2 mana by delving the fetch land you put out of your graveyard if you play turn 1 Serum Visions. This can also still just exile the Serum Visions and be a 2 mana counterspell, kind of like Mana Leak. But as the game goes late, unlike Mana Leak, this gets more and more value if you still have a full graveyard or just a bunch of mana, because they can't spell snare it no matter, unless the X is 0, this can't get spell snared. So it will always dodge a spell snare. You can always delve cards out of your graveyard, so even if you're just holding up 2 mana representing a Mana Leak or Remand, and they're playing around that, you can just delve cards out of your graveyard to beat the play around Mana Leak. And just having plenty of mana dump, this makes it a mana sink, which is always very nice. So there's why we have the 1 Logic Knot instead of another Remand or Mana Leak. There are 2 Dig Through Times, pretty common in control, more control-y blue decks, and the combo blue decks in Modern. Since we are not aggressive or Delver, we went with Dig Through Time over Treasure Cruise because we're looking for more quality of cards than quantity in a control style of deck. So definitely want to dig through times. There's one Consume to make, simply because we can tutor for it with Mystical Teachings and Instant Speed Wrath. Plenty of decks won't be able to beat an Instant Speed Wrath. And even against control decks in Game 1, this isn't dead. It can kill manlands, which is a very big deal. Being able to play this in response to something your opponent does on their turn, as long as it doesn't have split second, is very able to get blowouts. And even if you miss Teachings for it, your opponent won't always realize it's an instant, even though you tutored for an instant card. That has happened more than a few times, and I've been able to blow people out even more than I was already going to with Consume the Make. There are two Mystical Teachings. This is the Italian one. The English one in the back is tutor for an instant or card with flash, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Flashback 5 and a black. It is an instant, so that is very nice. Not having to tap out for this sorcery speed makes it playable in Modern. Very, very nice. Thank you, Morrow, for that. Being able to tutor for Snapcaster Mage or any of our bevy of instant speed spells. This can easily just go get a dig through time if you need more than one card just to have the cards to get you out of a situation. Because sometimes you don't always just need one, you need multiple spells, so this can normally go get a dig through time. And it's not uncommon to be Teachings and dig through time in the same turn as the game gets to turn 6 or later. So this card just has a bunch of utility, and all the instants in your sideboard become 3 ofs and 4 ofs instead of 1 and 2 ofs. So definitely a lot of value to Mystical Teachings. Plus, if you're ever forced to discard to Liliana, discarding Think Twice and Mystical Teachings is never really that bad. There are 2 cryptic commands. We'd like to play more, but it is triple blue and a colorless, so it is a 4-mana instant. Triple blue can be difficult. We normally will be able to fetch to get triple blue, but you can't always just reliably get triple blue. About 15-20% of your games you won't always have triple blue on turn 4, so we only want 2, but the power of Snapcaster Mage, Flashback Cryptic Command, counter your spell, and bounce Snapcaster Mage is a very good. It can counter draw a card, which is what it normally does, but it just has a bunch of utility. It's like a Swiss Army knife for blue. So this was definitely a card we wanted in the deck. It's proved its worth in Modern. It's in tons of blue decks that are actually seeing play in Modern. So, guys, sorry about that. So there's definitely a reason this card sees ton of play just because it's really good. So we definitely want some in our deck. There's one Hero's Downfall. We have plenty of cheap removal with 4 bolts and terminates and Izzet Charm, Electrolyze to normally handle the other game. So we do need a removal spell that can kill bigger creatures like Siege Rhinos, as that's seeing more playing Modern. It can kill Tarmogoyfs, and it can kill a Johnny Vengeance or Elspeth Knight Errants that are seeing play in your meta. I do have to worry about a Johnny Vengeance and Elspeth Knight Errant in my meta. There's tokens players and some control players. So just having a way to kill things. Also Lilianas, those can see play. Having ways to kill Planeswalkers, while also having a way to unconditionally kill any creature that could see play out of a pod or just mid-range deck. This card is definitely very good to have. There's 2 Electrolyze. This card's proven it's very good. Deals 2 damage divided you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players, and then you draw a card. Against Delver, can kill 1 or 2 creatures, draws you a card. It's instant speed, unlike Fork Bolt, though it does cost 2 more mana, and it also draws a card, so it replaces itself and has versatility of being instant. This card is just an all-around solid card to have access to. And paired with our 4 Lightning Bolts and Cruel Ultimatums, it kind of acts as reach very quickly, because Cruel Ultimatum dealing 5 damage to your opponent can really put them in a low life total, so it won't be uncommon for you to be able to burn them out afterwards off Cruel Ultimatum, and Electrolyze kind of helps out with that. There's 2 Think Twice, just something to do with 2 mana. We don't want just a bunch of counter spells and removal spells. We do want a way to draw more cards. We need some card advantage in the deck. Cryptic Command, Electrolyze replace themselves, Mystical Teachings replace itself, Serum Visions replace itself, Think Twice to replace itself, but then it can draw another card, which is the main reason to play cards like Death Through Time and Think Twice in a control deck. They're cheap ways to get actual card advantage instead of just replacing all your cards with another card or generating some extra value from a single spell like Murderous Redcap. So just kind of nice to have, and with our sideboard pack rats, being able to Think Twice is pretty good. There's also 3 Mana Leak and 2 Remand, and an Izzet Charm as our counter spells. Mana Leak and Remand have proven that having too many counter spells is really good. Mana Leak is a soft counter, it won't always be a hard counter. And Remand is kind of a time walk on turn 2. It's definitely been very good. Don't want more than 2 over the Izzet Charm. I'm playing Izzet Charm kind of acting as a draw kind of in between Remand Mana Leak and counter a non-creature spell unless they pay 2. Or it can draw 2 and discard 2, so it can help you filter through your deck a little faster. though it does take you down one card. If you're digging, it's not because you're caring about how many cards you have, you're looking for a certain card. So just Is It Charmed, just some nice fertility, and then just some counter magic. 2 Terminates, destroy target creature. Another Hero's Downfall variant. It can't hit Planeswalkers, but it's also at 2 mana. It also can't be regenerated. Won't be able to kill a Thrun, sadly. That's why Devour Flesh is in the sideboard, but it can kill anything like Lotless Troll or other creatures, Experiment 1, that actually see play in Modern that say regenerate. And just a cheap efficient 2-mana removal spell that can kill any creature that can be targeted by it in Modern is going to make this card very nice. And then our final spells are 4 Lightning Bolt. Not much need to explain this. Normally a removal spell in this deck paired with Electrolyze and Coral Ultimatum can act as Reach, but it's normally going to be killing early creatures. And then there is 1 Batter Skull as another win condition going along with our manlands, because sometimes Coral Ultimatum isn't enough, or you won't always be able to resolve your 7-mana sorcery, whereas you can resolve your 5-mana Batter Skull, and they can just keep killing your token, and you can keep just bouncing it and replaying it. And against burn and stuff, this can put the game out of the reach a lot faster than Coral Ultimatum can, because gaining 5 life might get you out of at one time, but Batter Skull connecting once, and then being able to block or attack again, while you can still hold up counter spells for Skull Cracks, makes Batter Skull a lot better in the burn matchups if you get to untap with it. As well as the control deck has a lot of trouble answering a resolved Batter Skull. And then we get our mana base, 1 Desolate House, just a cool land. It allows us to do something with our mana, though we do our Arcast and Coral Ultimatum. Orborg does make these cards tap for black mana, which is one of the most important and hardest colors to get on Coral Ultimatum in our deck, as black is mainly a splash. But it is also a way to draw and discard cards, filter through your deck a little more in control matchups, and just something to do with mana if you don't have anything else to do, which is always very good. Ghost Quarter is for manlands. I don't want Tectonic Edge. Affinity is the main deck I'll worry about with manlands, so they can always play around Tectonic Edge. They don't need more than 3 lands in play, unless they're just going to play a 4th land and it's a manland. They're not really going to play into your Tectonic Edges, and they'll just be sitting there looking pretty at $6 and being colorless lands that don't help you. Whereas Ghost Quarter will normally be live, and there will be times when you need to Ghost Quarter yourself to cast a Coral Ultimatum. That does happen on several occasions, but it is definitely worth it to cast a Coral Ultimatum. Then we got our basics, 2 islands, 2 mountains, and a swamp. There's also Orborg, which isn't really a basic, so it can't get Ghost Quarter pathed into play, but if you draw an Orborg, it can help smooth out your mana quite a bit and make your colorless lands useful, like I said. Though if your meta is full of a lot of other black decks, you might want Orborg. You might want to go a little lighter on the black in the deck, just because Orborg can fix your opponent's mana if they're having mana problems. But you do accept that risk if you play the card. I accept that risk, and I'm fine with it, so I can cast my Coral Ultimatums on time. Then we just got some lands. Nothing special, Steam Vents, Polluted Delta, Watergrave. We do have 3 Creeping Tar Pits in the deck, right? There's the 3rd one. My bad, guys. 3 Creeping Tar Pits and 2 Lava Claw Reaches Manland. Lava Claw Reaches you might have to read. I'll zoom in for that for you guys. It becomes a 2/2 with land breathing. It's like fire breathing except for lands. So in a deck where you're killing a bunch of creatures, it's not uncommon for this to swing for a lot of damage. Creeping Tar Pit can become unblockable, and its main reason to play 3 Tar Pit over 2 Reaches in this version of the deck is blue mana over red and black mana. So that's the main deck, guys. I'll be back for the sideboard in just a second. Alright, guys, welcome back to the sideboard. We'll get right into it. There is 1 Keranos. You bring this in any matchup that's going to go long, mainly control decks. I also brought this in against the Living End player. Did a lot of work in that matchup, even though he did Slaughter Games. He Slaughter Games Crypt Commands both times because he needed to stop those, but Keranos won me those games. Keranos is also really good in control matchups. Once it resolves, outside of Crypt Command, bounce and be able to counter it on the way back down, Keranos is going to kill them eventually. All you need is time, and in this deck you do have plenty of time. Between Coral Ultimatums, a Batter Skull, and counter spells, you can normally buy yourself enough time to kill them with Keranos. As well as if the game goes long against any mid-range deck, say Pod or something, Keranos can definitely give you a lot of advantage in that matchup and allow you to grind advantage and win through that, as well as just being a solid overall threat. But he's kind of slow in a meta of Burn and Delver. You don't always want a Keranos, so that's why we have 1 in the sideboard. There's also 1 Pack Rat, definitely good in the grinding matchups. I brought this in against many a control deck. I even brought this in against Pod. It's done a lot of work. When your opponent's sideboarding out all of their removal because there's so few creatures in the deck, unanswered pack rat will win the game. And if you play a pack rat, untap with it and just make a rat, that will also normally be able to end the game because you can just continue to make rats. And with flashback spells, excess spells you don't need. When your opponent's attacking your hand with hand disruption, just discarding the spells that they would take anyway to make a pack rat. When you run out of spells anyway, it's going to be very good that way, like against Pod. Almost killed him with pack rat. I needed one more turn, but he drew Siege Rider into Carrion Feeder with Pod in play to Pod into the Archangel to combo. And all I needed was one turn. I had Pyroclasm in hand, which didn't really help against an instant combo, being at sorcery speed. There's also one Curse or Death's Hold. This is for Delver matchup mainly. Anything else, Affinity decks that just play a bunch of X1s. This is my personal tech. I really like this card. It is a 5 mana though, so it's super slow. If you don't want to play it, I don't blame you. This is me being me and wanting to play cards that I just really like that aren't necessarily good, but can be blowouts. So that's why I have Curse or Death's Hold. If you don't play it, guys, I really honestly won't be surprised and will understand. There's also one Slaughter Games. This is for decks like Scape Shift. You need a way to stop them from comboing. I personally always expect Shapeshift to sideboard in their creatures, so I can handle their creatures. I'll keep in plenty of removal that just kills Inferno Titans or Primal Titans or Obstinate Bailiffs, whatever they brought in. But I do need a way to stop them from Scape-Shifting me, because it's really hard to win a counter war when your opponent just ramps into 8 mana to your 4. So they can play Escape Shift with 2 counter spells, and you can't play a third one. So that's why Slaughter Game's in here. If there's any other combo decks, this can name the combo piece so you won't have to worry about it. There are 2 Anger of the Gods. I was playing Pyroclasms, but after this past week of running into Zoo and then running into tokens, and then running into Pod, I determined I really wanted Anger of the Gods over Pyroclasm, because my meta is not super full of Delver Affinity, so Pyroclasm is not really going to be amazing in my meta, so I went back to Anger of the Gods. Being able to exile the creatures can sometimes be relevant, but it's mainly the 3 damage. So it's a 3-mana Wrath, which is going to be very good. So 1 Counterflux. This is just to have an uncounterable counterspell. Sometimes against like Scape Shift, you'll need a Counterflux, or against other control decks, you need to be able to stop their game-ending threats when they have a bunch of counterspell backup. If they try to play a Keranos, if they try to play a Batterskull, something you can't beat, you do need a way to stop it, and Counterflux is one of the few ways you have to do that. There's also 2 Devour Flesh. If there's Bogus players in your meta, it's going to be very good. It's also just early removal if you really need it, like against Zoo. As well as this can kill Thruns. So I will bring this in against a green deck that is kind of grindy. Pretty much any green deck I've run into will normally have access to 1 Thrun, so it's not uncommon for me to be bringing in Devour Flesh to answer their Thrun, since you can Mystical Teachings for Devour Flesh. There's also 1 Rakdos Charm. It's a good card against Affinity. You can go blow up artifacts. The dealing 1 damage to for each creature deals 1 damage to its owner. Not super its controller, sorry guys, isn't super relevant, but the exile all cards to target player's graveyard at instant speed, meaning we can Mystical Teachings for this against a Living End player or graveyard-based deck like Storm. It's just going to make this very good. Utility, unfortunately it can't blow up enchantments, but Grixis doesn't really have a way to answer enchantments unless you want to play Spine of Ishsha, which not even I will do in Modern, in this deck anyway, so you're probably just going to have to deal with the Blood Moon or anything else they play. There are also 2 Spell Pierce and a Dispel is just some cheap counter spells. You bring these in against Control and Delver. Burn as well. Just having cheap counter spells to answer either their cheap threats with like Lightning Bolt, Serum Visions, Treasure Cruise. Well, Spell Pierce might be able to get Treasure Cruise if you're ambitious. But Spell Pierce can counter lots of early burn spells. It can counter lots of cheap counter spells when your opponent will play a big threat and have counterspell backup. You want Spell Pierce and Dispel to stop them. There have been situations too where if they somehow look at your hand like a Vendilion Click or a Thoughtseize effect and they can't take a Cruel Ultimatum, or you have multiple Cruel Ultimatums, you can use Spell Pierce and Mana Lake and Izzet Charm to tap them low enough to where you can win a counter war over your Cruel Ultimatum. So you don't even need Spell Pierce to be a hard counter, because they'll have like 5 mana or 3 mana, but they won't tap the 2, so they can try to counter your Cruel Ultimatum. So that can always be good if they know you have it. Dispel, being able to counter any instant, can make this card very good. It's just a 1 mana counter spell in the matchups you bring it in. So you will want at least 1 of these in your sideboard, maybe 2, depending on how instant heavy your meta is. Mine's not too heavy, so I only have 1. There's 1 Dark Blast. This is very good against Affinity and Delver. Having Dredge 3 can also fuel your delve cards. It can also just be a card if you don't need cards anymore to Pack Rat, you don't care what you draw, but you might want a Dark Blast, just get Dark Blast and then discard it to a Pack Rat if you brought it in the same matchup for, like, I don't know, Pod or something. But I didn't bring this in against Pod. But it certainly has a lot of blowout utility in the matchups you bring it in. Mainly Delver and Pod. If there's, Delver and Affinity, or maybe some other decks you want to bring this in against. But those are the two main ones. Then one Dragon's Claw. This is pretty much solely for Burn and Delver. It's not nearly as good as a Core Firewalker is in either of those matchups. But those decks are mainly trying to play some cheap creatures and then burn you out. So Dragon's Claw is going to be very good in those matchups, making all of their burn spells worse burn spells. That's mainly the only reason to play this. And when you cast a red spell, which there are plenty of red spells in the deck, you will also gain a life off that, so that is important to remember if you do play Dragon's Claw. So guys, there's the sideboard of Cruel Control that you hopefully already saw the main deck, or skipped through to the sideboard for whatever reason. So, quick end notes. This is our YouTube channel. Please hit like or subscribe if you enjoyed the video, or thought it was terrible and just want to keep watching my terrible videos and call me an idiot every time. Feel free to do that as well. You can find us on Twitter at PureSalsBlog. You can find my articles over all of my decks on mtgbrodials.com. And shout out to MTG Nerds United. Also a great place to go check out deck techs and some other cool things that he does. He does more things than we do, and he does them more frequently. So if you want consistency, please go check him out. It's very solid work over there. He's a very nice guy. He is a sir and a gent, and he appears to have more time than we do to make Magic content, as college, work, finals are finally over, so we will hopefully be able to produce content for you guys for at least for the next month on a steady schedule, but we can't make any promises as we still have a lot of life issues to deal with, but we will do our best. As usual, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time.